Well, one of the hostage, Hirsch Goldberg Pollen, was an American citizen. The American president, Joe Biden, said that he was devastated and outraged to hear of his death. I'm joined now by the United States Senator from Georgia, Reverend Raphael Warnock, who's in London to deliver a sermon right after this programme on the anniversary of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. We'll discuss those themes of race inequality that still loom large over the United States in a moment, as well as on this side of the Atlantic. But first, Senator, can I get your reaction to the news from the Middle East?
Well, of course, it's heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. We send out our prayers to the family of all of the hostages and this American hostage, and we pray for peace.
I want to come back to the issue of, or if you like, the position of the candidate that you're supporting, obviously, for President Kamala Harris in this area in a moment. But let's start by talking about why you're here. It's 61 years since Dr. King made a speech on the steps of the Lincoln Monument. Why is this still relevant to our times?
Well, 60 years ago, Dr. King actually preached here at the St. Paul's Cathedral, and I was invited to come and preach in honor of that moment. I serve as a United States Senator from the state of Georgia, honored to represent the people of that state. But before I came to the Senate, I served as pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church. I still serve there, where Dr. King preached. But these issues around justice and building what Dr. King called the beloved community, of pulling together the various strands of our humanity so that we might live in peace, whether we're talking about justice and peace in the United States, in the UK, in Israel, among Palestinians and Israelis. Dr. King's message of nonviolence, of truth-telling, and of justice-making is as relevant today as it was 60 years ago.
But of course, at the heart of what we think of in relation to Dr. King, though, as you say, his agenda broadened towards the end of his life, was the issue of race. And it's not always obvious from the side of the Atlantic why race takes such precedence in American life and still does, given that many of the political leaders of the United States are African-American, all sorts of barriers have been broken through. You yourself are an example of that. You're the first black senator from the South. Why is race such a prevalent and divisive issue in the United States?
Well, we're witnessing right now backlash in our country. You're right. We've had an African-American, we've had a black president. We've got Kamala Harris, who's the nominee. But I think it's important that one is aware of the complicated history of the American story. This is a country that allowed me, a kid who grew up in public housing, to serve in the United States Senate. I was elected on January 5th, first black senator from Georgia, alongside John Ossoff, first Jewish senator from Georgia. The very next day, we witnessed a violent insurrection that was instigated by the current president, driven by the big lie that somehow this election had been stolen. Behind that lie was an even bigger lie that this emerging multiracial American electorate does not get to decide the future of the country. So in a real sense, like all families, the American family has a complicated story, and we continue to push towards our ideals, and that is a country that embraces all of us.
You're supporting Vice President Harris in this election, and I think everybody reckons that your state, Georgia, is probably the most crucial state in what's going to be a close election. How close is it in Georgia itself?
It's very close, and it's going to be a tight race. Georgia did an amazing thing when it elected me to the United States Senate. My race, alongside that of the other United States Senator from Georgia, John Ossoff, literally flipped the Senate, which then opened the door for us to get
Previous to that, the
amazing things
Republicans
that
were
we've
in
done.
control of the Senate.
That's true, and we flipped the Senate. But Georgia is going to be crucial. I often say that the road to the White House goes right through Georgia, and I'm going to be doing everything I can to get Kamala Harris elected.
Well, let's talk about Vice President Harris. She's not the best-known figure in this country, and there are many things we don't actually know about what she thinks. One specific question is, she hasn't spoken about when she knew of President Biden's apparent cognitive decline and how much she knew. She is going to have to say something about that before election day, isn't she?
I push back against the premise. The president is serving as president. He's doing just fine. He made a decision based on the input that he'd been receiving. He made a decision to move aside and allow for someone else to be the standard bearer for the.
But surely that input was largely because of doubt about his capacity to perform.
Joe Biden is doing just fine, and he has been one of the most consequential presidents in my lifetime. We're talking about the first gun safety bill passed in 30 years. After many presidents promised to do so, he got it done. Donald Trump spent almost every week of his presidency talking about infrastructure week. Joe Biden finally got it done. We did massive investments, not only in infrastructure, but the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the largest investment in clean energy and a clean energy future in human history.
I want to come back to Mr. Trump in a second, but can I just ask you one other question? We were talking a moment ago about what's happening in the Middle East. What can we expect from a President Harris? If, for example, if she's elected, will she continue arms shipments to Israel?
I think she has stated clearly, and far be it for me to speak on behalf of who I believe will be the next president of the United States. She has indicated that she stands by Israel's right and ability to defend itself in a very dangerous neighborhood, a very dangerous part of the world. We are witnessing that right now. Our hearts continue to go out for the hostages. October 7th was a terrible and devastating day for the people of Israel. She has indicated that she stands by the Palestinian people and their right to self-determination, and that a two-state solution where Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side in peace with their Middle East neighbors, that is the North Star. If getting there were easy, we'd be there by now.
I want to come back to the issue of race in just a second, but can I just ask you about God? Donald Trump says this week that God saved him from the assassination attempt. You probably have a more direct line to the Almighty than I do. What are you hearing on that claim?
I'm praying that God, in partnership with us, this November 5th will save us from Donald Trump.
Let's come back to the reason that you're here, that you're going to be talking about issues of race. We're going to see, it looks like, what is described as a neo-Nazi party coming to power in at least one part of Germany. We're seeing the rise of anti-immigrant parties across Europe. And of course, you in the United States have your issues about the border and immigration is a big issue. What lessons can we draw from your experience about the divisiveness of race, I guess, still in the modern world?
Listen, we have to be vigilant in building what Dr. King called the beloved community. And he often said that the real danger is not, what he called the children of darkness and those who are, we know who these people are. We know who the neo-Nazis are and all of these far right-wing groups that put forward a kind of view of humanity that is nativistic, that is xenophobic. The question is, those of us who believe in peace, who believe in human dignity, what are we going to do to move that forward? And so that's the work that I try to do every single day as a United States Senator. It is why I try to put forward legislation that affirms the dignity of poor people, that provides a path for people that leads to human fulfillment. I wouldn't be sitting here if it were not for the voice and the moral courage, not only of Martin Luther King Jr., but of the multiracial coalition of conscience that he was able to pull together. Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman, two Jews and an African American, who literally lost their lives fighting for voting rights. Viola Luisa, a white woman, who lost her life fighting for voting rights and for civil rights. And it is that kind of multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-generational coalition of conscience that we need as we push back against the autocratic forces that are trying to put forward a certain agenda in Europe and all across the globe.